Jim Wood is here with me, and we're both wondering, why are we inside when it is so... Well, it's been nice outside for a long time, so I guess, we can take one day.
Any way to do the show outside?
No, I don't think so. Well, I suppose we could, but that'd be fun.
Dogs barking.
Yeah, dogs barking. I don't know if there are no dogs around here. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of stuff I think that would be fun to talk about today. It's been an interesting week, as most of them are, it seems to me. But one of the things that I like to do, and this week is no exception, is do a little bit of research on what you might be seeing out there and things that you might be seeing out there that you don't know how to place it. I mean, what do I do with this thing right here? This is what's getting pitched to me. And how do I take this, process it, and is this something I should pay attention to? Is it something I should ignore? Is it something I can just go, forget it, this is just marketing, as so much of investing information is. Just so much of what we get about investing is just plain marketing in disguise, very little education. But it reminds me of, Jim, when we had that Navigating the Fog of Investing, and they had these hidden camera interviews. That just hit me. Navigating the Fog of Investing, it was a documentary many years ago. It was put together by some people that we know. And I was in upstate New York visiting parents and got a call, said, "Hey, Paul," said, "can you come to Cincinnati to do an interview for this, do it from a financial advisor's perspective?" Because they had John Vogel, founder of Vanguard, on there. There was, you had Harry Markowitz, Nobel Prize winning economist, on there. There was an attorney, a securities attorney, and he and his partner were both involved in this just horrendous lawsuit where this guy was just taken advantage by a big investment firm. And it just went back and forth. And it was so sad, because you go to arbitration. And an arbitration, when it comes to investing, is, so when you sign a contract to go through and have an investment advisor handle your stuff, you have arbitration. And that is where you have a few people in a room. It's not handled for a jury and a bunch of people in a room. It's handled for people that are in the industry, because supposedly a regular jury wouldn't know what to do with the information. So they need to have somebody that is in the industry to help litigate and help come up with a decision as to what's right. Well, of course, what happens when you have a bunch of people in the industry deciding whether you have a case or not, sometimes it doesn't necessarily go the way of the client. Let's just put it that way. And I remember the female attorney, she was just beside herself, because this guy had basically retired, and he had a tremendous amount of money in a very concentrated position, not unlike what we see now so often with people that are chasing technology stocks right now, and they don't even realize it. They're buying S&P 500 funds and not recognizing that most of the money is in, just a few stocks. And they're not recognizing this. And then he comes out and he says, "Well, I thought they were going to be there to protect me. I thought they were going to take care of me." And of course not. That wasn't how it ended. And this guy barely got his attorney's fees back. That was about it. It wasn't a whole lot. And he's having to do another job all the way through retirement. Although he had millions of dollars when he retired, he's having to do this other job just to make ends meet. So it was kind of sad. That was the case. But in there, they had these hidden camera interviews with major investment firms. And you'd know exactly what investment firms they were if I named them, but they were major investment firms. And this is my pet peeve, is so often people think, I'm working with a huge firm. They ought to be doing what's right because they're so big that, how could they possibly get away with doing anything wrong? And the reality of it is, if everybody's driving 80 miles per hour in a 70 mile per hour zone, nobody's going to get pulled over. And that's kind of the way it is in the industry. And when you sign up for these investment management agreements, you're signing an arbitration agreement, and you're signing that, you're okay with whatever they're going to do. And, like one firm, a lady actually comes in here and she says, I'm looking at this firm. These guys, I was talking to these people, but I thought I should come talk to you first, and did that. And I says, bring in the contract. Big investment firm, bring in the contract. And they had literally in their contract for asset management abdicated all their responsibilities. You're responsible for rebalancing the portfolio. You're responsible if there are changes in the assets. And I was flabbergasted at how much they had basically walked away from responsibility regarding in the management of the portfolio. So they're doing these hidden camera interviews. I promise I'm going to get back on point, Jim.
Making a big circle.
I'm making a big circle. But they're doing these interviews, hidden camera interviews. And what was so fun about the documentary, the documentary, is that they had hidden camera, and this person would say, "I'm the quarterback," and you're like, and he's like, they're using these metaphors, to explain what their job is as the investment advisor. I'm the quarterback, and you are the, whatever, and I'm the coach, and you're the player or whatever. But it was these metaphors, and it was being, sales pitch, no education. And we're going to go out and we're going to actually find the best companies for you to invest in. Bing, sales pitch, no education. And we actually have a track record of blah, 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 blah. Bing, sales pitch, no education. And it was point after point was that people were just being indoctrinated. They were not being educated when it came to investing. And, so often what happens is that people get frustrated with that type of thing. And, I was thinking about this today too, is, so what do people do to protect themselves? And I will never forget, actually, I was at the radio station one day, and there was a guy that was a football player for the Tennessee Titans. And this guy was super, super successful. And we got in a conversation. And I said, "What is it with you guys?" And he's like, "What?" And I said, 72% of you are bankrupt 2 years after leaving the league. You make all this money, and yet you're bankrupt 2 years after leaving the league. What gives? And he started going, "Well, Paul, it's kind of like, you have all these opportunities, you're making all this money, you think it's going to come in forever, and you're basically, people coming around." I said, "Yeah, you're all the rage," or you're, kind of like the Styx song. The fun never ends. You've got dozens of friends. Fun never ends as long as you're buying, right? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly it. So no sooner do he and I stop talking, he goes on the radio. And one of the guys at the sports station says, so-and-so, man, you got an apartment in Nashville, a really nice place. You got this place in Franklin, and you got another place in California, don't you? And I turned to one of the guys at the station. I just nudged him. I go, "See, that's it. That's what I was just talking to him about." They spend themselves into oblivion thinking this money will come in forever. And it probably wasn't a couple of years, though, that he was out of the league, right? So go ahead, Jim.
No. I was just, go ahead.
So one of the things that he said when he was in the interview was this. They said, "So you got a financial advisor?" And, yeah, I've got a financial advisor. I'm thinking, yeah. No, I got two of them. And he says, "So why you have two? What are you doing with two financial advisors?" He goes, "Well, I have one watch the other, and the other one watches that one, just to make sure neither one are messing up." I go, "No, one's lying and the other's swearing to it." So I'm thinking, it's going on in the back of my mind, right? And I so often you hear that where somebody has, they'll have multiple advisors, and I think there's safety there. And one of the things that I point out quite often regarding that is you ought to have second opinions. As a matter of fact, there was one lady I was actually talking to a few weeks ago. And I said, go interview every financial person that you can talk to. Go to every dinner that you can go to. Go to every office and go interview everybody that you can. And then come talk to one of my guys last. So I sent him to one of you guys at one of the other offices. And basically what happened, she came back to me afterward and she says, "Well, I went and started working with, your guy." And I said, "So tell me about what was your experience like?" And she told me, and it was all this crazy stuff. But what she did was this. She went and talked to many, many people, and that's really, really good, number one. But here's the other thing that she didn't do. That sometimes what I'll see people do is they'll have multiple financial advisors or multiple investment accounts all over the place. And they think they are what, Jim?
They think they're diversified.
Exactly. They think they're diversified. So one of the things I was thinking about as I just started the show today is let me just take, like, for example, T. Rowe Price Spectrum Moderate Growth Allocation Fund. So this is an asset allocation fund. They're dividing the portfolio amongst all different types of stocks and bonds, and they're managing the portfolio. It is a one-stop shop investment alternative for T. Rowe Price. Then you take Vanguard Life Strategy Growth Fund. That is a one-stop shop fund that was just designed for somebody that has a growth goal in their portfolio. It is a fund of funds, so it's a fund that owns multiple mutual funds. And then I took Fidelity Asset Manager. And for the sake of time, I only chose 3 different asset managers, big ones, just to make this point, because I think this is important for people to get. Then what I did is I did what is called an overlap analysis. You think you're diversified, right? NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Meta, Taiwan Semiconductor, Alphabet, Broadcom, JP Morgan, Tesla, Visa, Netflix, Berkshire Hathaway. These are all holdings of these portfolios. Now, NVIDIA is held by the Fidelity Asset Manager Fund, the T. Rowe Price Spectrum Fund, and the Vanguard Life Strategy. So that's held by all 3. Microsoft is held by all 3. Apple is held by all 3. Amazon is held by all 3 funds. Meta is held by all 3 funds. Taiwan Semiconductor is a foreign company owned by all 3 funds. And then you've got Broadcom is held by all 3 funds. And you're getting the point, right? You think you are diversified.
And I'm also guessing that, and you're probably getting to this, I might be jumping the gun, is that they're overwhelmingly invested in large U.S. growth.
Oh, no question. No question. That's mainly what they're invested in. And
in this diversified, supposedly, group of funds.
No question. So, it really wasn't going to get to that, but I'll get to that. Since you brought it up, Jim, I mean, it is a point worth making. So you take that first fund, the T. Rowe Price Fund, and you learn to look at the asset mix, and you got 51% of the money in U.S., one country, 26% in non-U.S. stocks. You got fixed income. You literally have 1.22% of the portfolio in micro or small companies and only 4% in small companies in that portfolio. So you really don't have diversification between different size companies. If you look at the Vanguard Life Strategy Fund, that fund is, 1.16% micro, 4.28, almost identical in the asset mix between small companies and large. The rest of it is very large or very large companies. You only have 2% of the portfolio in small value. That is where you have the highest expected return in an investment portfolio. 2% of your money is in an area that has the highest expected return, and this is a growth fund. For who? People that presumably want their investments to what?
That would be growth.
That would be growth. Yeah. We'll take growth for $250. Then you got the Fidelity Asset Manager Fund. What is that sitting in? That is sitting mainly in U.S. stocks, a little bit of international. Oh, they have a full whopping 2% of their portfolio in microcap stocks and 4% in small caps. 3%. 1% more in small value where you'd have the highest expected return. So it is an illusion. It is an illusion that they really have you diversified, and it is an illusion that is greater safety in having multiple investment managers. And you're smiling, Jim, so I know that you got something wiseacre to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just think of we have every color you like as long as you like green.
Oh, yeah, there you go. It's Henry Ford on investments. You got to have any colored Model T that you want as long as it's black. Yeah, exactly. That is precisely what we're dealing with here. And the thing is that investors don't realize it. They don't recognize this is what's happening when it comes to choosing multiple different investment managers. And they don't really know that it's happening because the reality of it is they're not really getting educated. They're getting sales pitches every time that they go in and do this type of thing.
And everything you're saying applies to target date funds as well in terms of the lack of diversification,
That's
the
correct.
Overlap between target date funds. They all kind of have the same type of mix. They're all, large growth heavy, short on small caps, don't have a value tilt, all those same things. No matter which company you look at, it's the same stuff.
It really is. And those are funds that are typically the default choice that you have when you go to work for an employer. You'll typically just go in there and and that's what I was telling our clients. Bring the funds in that you have access to. They will give you access to other things because they know what we know. That if down the line, 20 years, 30 years, you're sitting there on a fraction of the amount of money that you should have had because you weren't diversified, because you were so concentrated in bigger companies, because you were so concentrated, and you could go 10, 20 years with no return in large U.S. stocks. If you're sitting there at that point down the road, you're going to go, wait. I gave you guys I told you to manage this money for me, and you blew it and you did this, and you can't sue them because of what's called 404C. As long as that is the code that basically says, as long as they give you enough options, you can't come back at them. So again, the investment industry has protected itself against you having any kind of for them having ramifications, and for you for any kind of retribution that could happen where you go back at them and say, this is wrong.
Fun little statistic. By 2027, target date funds will capture 66% of all 401k contributions and of about 46% of total assets.
Now, I know with Vanguard, they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% already, and that was probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me that it's all assets, and most people don't realize it's happening. So this is a segment to send all your friends who think, oh, everything's going to be great because I am working with big investment managers and my workplace has chosen them. Recognize that I don't know of one target date fund, not one fund family, not one anywhere that really diversifies in a way that I would consider prudent. You know, where you're dividing between big companies and small companies. You're dividing between value and growth. They typically tilt toward very big companies. And you go, well, why would they do that, Paul? Why would they do that? And the reason is because you're more familiar with those companies and you're more likely to stick with them. And their job mainly is this: make you money? No. Recognize their job is to get your money under management and keep your money under management. Those are the two jobs of the investment manager.
And I think one reason, too, why they tend to be more conservative than you would otherwise think is...
I don't think that's conservative, though.
No, but when they tend to have higher bond allocations...
higher bond allocation, yes.
Then
yes.
I would suggest at each age,
You're
and
right.
they do that to control volatility, which keeps people from going to the exit during volatile markets.
I think that's a wonderful point. That's a really good point, Jim, because you're exactly right. They do. That has been one of the criticisms, that they go way too much into fixed income too soon for most investors. Now, there are a few people that might actually make sense for, but most people, it's way too much. And the reason being is that if you get a little bit nervous, you'll fire them a lot more quickly. When indeed markets do what they do, they go up and they go down. The average market downturn, when they happen, they don't last that long historically. Now, if you're not diversified, they can last a long, long time. We have a new retirement income guide. Biggest concern that people have is not running out of money in retirement. Now, there are all kinds of myths out there. Dividend paying stocks, interest on CDs, life insurance, annuities. There are a lot of things that people do to try to take an income in retirement that don't work. Well, what does the evidence-based research actually show? And we got data going back to 1900 on this. Well, that's what I put this guide together for. So check it out. You can download it below, and I think you're going to be really glad you did. All right, we're back here on the Investor Coaching Show. I'm Paul Winkler along with Jim Wood. Jim Wood, certifiable financial planning professional. Yeah, you see those new commercials on certified financial planners. They're like, people that they're doing all these commercials. I guess somebody, I forgot, one was like they hired an electrician. The person didn't have a degree, and they get electrocuted. So and then they go, are you a certified? They have a nightmare about that happening. Are you a certified financial planner? Yes, I am. Well, Jim is. Okay. I think it's good. I think the education is good. There's only one beef that I have that I will publicly speak about. That part, the degree programs for financial planners is so often it is driven by, again, who sends students to the colleges is quite often the big investment firms, and a lot of times they're a little bit light on the academic side of investing principles. But other than that, when it comes to tax stuff and planning, I think it's really, really good. Social Security education, risk management education, estate planning education, I think is great. So, but you
said you had one beef. I have an additional beef.
Do you?
Yeah, they keep raising their fees.
They do keep raising their fees. So they pay for those advertising
Yeah, that's
they're
exactly,
doing a lot of their
exactly
advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how much benefit that is, but I think, when you are choosing a financial advisor, that you want to make sure that they have the degree of chartered financial consultant or certified financial planner at a minimum. And I like for people to go on and really get some kind of academic training behind that regarding investing, because I think it's a little bit light on that, because I think, and they have to be, the big investment firms would not send anybody to go get those degrees if they really tore apart some of the practices being done by these big investment firms. They'd have no students. So you just got to be buyer beware.
Yes, and and it's funny because you talk about. I was just talking the other day about kind of my transition from the broker dealer world to what we do,
Right.
And part of that was because when I started studying academics and I was still at the broker dealer I was trying to get this through, said this is what I want to do. And so I'd submit all the materials and things and try to get them approved. And they wouldn't approve them because they were saying essentially that, you should do this academic process and you shouldn't gamble and speculate. And they can't approve that when everybody else in the firm is doing exactly that.
Oh, yeah.
So they wouldn't approve any of the materials for that very reason. So there's nothing wrong with what it's saying. There's nothing that was untrue or anything like that. But they couldn't talk. I mean, they felt like they were talking out of both sides of the mouth. We can't say you should do this academic process when we're letting everybody else tell you that they can stock pick and market time your way to success.
Well, it's funny because I've seen in some of the colleges, you'll have a professor that's very pro annuities. And then, I just had no respect for those people because I thought that they were very data light in terms of backing their stance on that. But you had some of the teachers that were, no, this is nonsense. Which, it was funny because you had some people that were thinking inside there, and the ones that were really thinking, really frustrated because they end up leaving the college.
Yeah, and you find out some of the ones that are pushing annuities are captured by the insurance industry.
Oh, yeah. And even the insurance industry, the colleges are run by people that are ex-insurance executives.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating. But anyway, so if you wonder why you get some information that seems to be academic in nature backing those things, and you hear me going, no, nonsense, I always tell people, trust your gut, trust your instincts. When you put money in an insurance contract, if somebody's telling you that they're going to give you a high return with no risk, that there is recognize that there is no such thing as a free lunch. It's just like anything else in life. It is not possible. You cannot get those things. When you hand the money to an insurance company, they are going to turn around and they're going to invest it. And they're going to invest it if they're going to guarantee what you're going to get back, that you have absolutely no volatility whatsoever. They can't be investing it in anything that has any volatility, and therefore you can't be getting anything that would have any higher expected return than a bond or a fixed income investment. Recognize it. Realize that your gut is probably your best friend when it comes to this stuff. Be very, very careful, as I did last week, where I played an educational video. It was an educational video teaching people how to sell annuities, indexed annuities. And basically what this guy said is, I'm not very smart. This was the salesperson, I'm thinking, wow, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? That is, I actually played that for a friend of mine. It was kind of hilarious. He's actually listening to as I'm doing this. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Yeah, here it is right here. Check this out. This is what he said. So he's talking about the sales presentation that he's about to give, or that where he learned his sales presentation to sell annuities. You just got to
start with just a simple presentation. If you guys went to any of the training camps or the conferences, the fall sales or the spring sales conferences, you would have saw this. But it's a 10-minute presentation, and for me, simple is easy. I loved Ruggiero. I thought he was a great trainer. He was a genius in my mind.
Yes.
But when he spoke, the way he spoke, the language he used, I'm going like, I can't say that. People are going to look at me and go like, somebody, you got an earpiece in. Somebody's telling you what to say because you're not that smart. So, and our clientele's not that way either.
My clientele's not that very smart either. That right from the horse's mouth. Somebody's selling this stuff.